my first company, it taught me people are talking. They're screaming, shouting, announcing who they are every day.
Let me ask you, when you reflect on your previous companies, do you see them as failures or lessons disguised in loss?
Man, both, man. People be like, man, I ain't never took no L's. My L's was lessons. I ain't take no losses. I'm like, no, you lost money. I lost money. When I am on my deathbed, I want to be able to look up and say, I was faithful to my wife. That is a life goal of mine. So that's for me. But ultimately, I want to be said, man, that he did those two things that Jesus said. And he loved God with all his mind, heart, soul, and strength. And he loved his neighbor as himself.
So you really don't really care about what society has to say? Is that what you're saying right now?
You have the greatest pool of entrepreneurial talent in this country locked away.
When you control a man thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there's no back door, he will cut one for his own special benefit. His education makes it necessary. And that's why we thought it was necessary that we start this podcast, Man-Made Men. This is where we will be interviewing extraordinary men that's doing extraordinary things throughout their community, their life, their family, with love, care, and passion. So join us as we embark on this journey of finding men all across America that's doing extraordinary things on Man-Made Men. Let's get it started.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man-Made Man podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you are busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Man-Made Men. I'm here very pleased to have one of my little brothers, a friend, somebody that I truly admire, a man of God, a great husband, great businessman, great family man, a man that all of our friend group look up to. And we like to introduce you to Jonathan Arias. How you doing, sir?
Man, I'm blessed to be here. Let me say before we get started that I'm so proud of what you've been able to accomplish, man. The whole Man-Made Man, explanations, every iteration of it, from the beginning till now. Man, I'm proud of you, and I'm always going to support however I can.
You know, when you starting a business, you got to training until it gets right. You have to continue to modify. We started off as Machinations, and now we're Man-Made Men. We are Man-Made Media, and we have this portion of it, which is Man-Made Men. And if you all don't know what Man-Made Men is, this is where we go to our friend group and people that we know, men that have high character and are good on family and successful. And everybody must be referred in, or people that we know, and they refer the people in as we go on. We are just not simply doing random people we find. These are people that's closely connected to our network. So we would like to present to you Jonathan. So let's get straight to it. But before we do that, CB Smith, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, my boy. Let's get it.
He got his game face on right now. Let's get to it. So who is Jonathan?
Man, it's funny. You keep calling me Jonathan. I'm used to you calling me MOG, and mostly everybody calling me MOG, but you said it. I'm a man of God. And so, man, by that, what I mean is I am whatever my creator says I am, whoever he says I am. And, you know, I think it's important, one of the things that is an issue in our society is people not knowing who they are. They feel lost, they feel disconnected. But I think the root of that comes down to not going to their source. And ultimately, my source is the creator, God, and whoever I am is determined by God. And so, man, to answer your question, I'm a man of God, and whatever he says about me is who I am. So, moving on from I'm a man of God, man, I'm a husband because he says, hey, this is his structure for building up a strong society, is to take up a wife. And then I'm a father because he says, man, be fruitful and multiply from there. And then I'm a business owner because he also called me to subdue this earth. And so, it all stems from that first place.
Why should people care who Jonathan Arias is?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if they should. Frankly, I'm kind of happier when people don't. Like, I realized that back in the day, it was my desire to be known, to be liked, to be popular, to be famous. And the older I get, and frankly, the more successful I get, man, the less I want people to know. I want to be out of the spotlight. And I'm realizing that about different men who I admire, who I respect. They they stay low key. And so, man, you don't got to know me. The one thing you have to know about, and the one thing you should care about, is the God I serve, because ultimately, the way I understand it is that will determine the quality of your life, your stay on earth, and furthermore, what happens after you leave this earth. So, in my opinion, that's what they should care about.
That's awesome. Listen, so Marcus Y. Rosier said, don't spend every waking day with an unemployed purpose. Mm-hmm. Do you believe you're living in your true calling?
Yeah, I do. Man. I'm thinking about the quote while you're saying it. Yeah, I do believe I'm walking in the purpose, and my purpose, I think, so this pastor who I like a lot, he talks about leadership as well. He's not just a, straight up Bible pastor. His big thing is also raising up leaders, because he's a pastor of many pastors. His church is the biggest church, Andy Stanley. So biggest church in America, out there in Atlanta. And one of the things he says is, man, your purpose has to be portable. It has to be succinct and portable. So his church's mission statement is to create churches that unchurched people love to attend. And mine is, man, to create companies that create good. Nice and portable, 4 words, create companies that create good, or 5 words rather. And so, man, that is what I'm doing. So in everything that I'm a part of, in terms of the companies that I own, they have a giving component financially, and also a giving component to the people who I employ and to the community. And so, man, the moment that I started walking in that calling, creating companies that create good, I was like, man, I'm here. But the vision is so big. When we do this interview again in 5 years, man, we got so much to talk about, because, man, it's like God has given me a great vision to do so many things for his namesake.
So how does that label clash with what society expects from you?
I mean, I try not to focus on the second part of your question, as far as society and their expectations, because ultimately that's not even firm. That's going to change, right? So what society expects from me, right? If we're talking, 100, 200 years ago, they would expect me to be a compliant Negro. They'd expect me to be a hard worker. If we're talking maybe 50 years ago, they would expect me to work a good line job, at a factory. You know what I'm saying? And now they expect me, I guess, to, be I could go after the things that I'm currently doing, but my focus isn't, what society says or how they define where I need to be, because if I do that, I'll drive myself crazy. Lecrae, one of my favorite artists, he says, man, if you live for people's acceptance, then you'll die from their rejection. And man, I think that's insightful. And so, man, my focus, Toy, is the first part of that question is, how does me being a man of God and that definition really affect the way I operate? Because, man, our society, I'm 39, right? I'm about to be 40, but man, like there's so many issues that we were dead set on when I was a kid. And now it's so many of them have flipped. And so, man, I refuse to ever focus on what society is prescribing, saying is good, saying is okay, because ultimately, man, society killed my savior.
So you really don't really care about what society has to say? Is that what you're saying right now?
What I'm saying is, I think that there are elements of the fact that you have to be in this world, but not of this world. The Bible talks about that. And so I'm not gonna go off and live in a compound and just be like, I'm living life my way. I think there's elements to, like, I live in the society and there's a portion of conforming. But I think when it comes to purpose, that's how I determine your question. When it comes to purpose and when it comes to what people say as far as my direction, I have to be very careful to take my cues from God and not from society. Because, for example, let's talk about like manhood. When we were kids, manhood meant you don't cry, you don't complain, you just provide, and you just got to be a tough guy, right? And then I realized, man, that probably killed some of our fathers and uncles, or is killing them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they never went to the doctor, they never complained about anything. They got all types of emotional turmoil going on that they're still not dealt with, and so it's I have to be careful where I take my cues from, versus if I look to God, then that ultimately I have the ability to take my cues from my creator, and ultimately not fall into manhood du jour, or Jonathan du jour, like what is popular, what is prescribed by society today. Because ultimately nobody wants that person, nobody wants to be led by that person, nobody wants to be married to that person. Ultimately, the men we respect, even if we disagree with their opinions, are the ones who stand for something, and they're like, hey, this is my stand. And although I'm going to be a learner and somebody who grows and researches, I stand for this thing, and that's going to be what I'm marked by. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Real quick, because you just hit on something. What is your definition of a man?
So ultimately, that's a very layered question, right? Because there's from the biological, physiological standpoint, there's the XY chromosomes, and there's having a penis and being born as male, but we know that it's more than that. And so that's more to your question. Ultimately, it depends on who you're going to take your cues from, what we've been talking about this whole time, and God, right? So how does he define it? And in God's word, what we see is, man, that there are certain things that define a man and somebody coming into manhood. And the main thing that I see, is submission to him, and taking on of responsibilities that ultimately make you worthy to be a leader.
And something else that I think we can say that men are more likely to take more risk than our female counterparts. Saying that, you've started multiple businesses here. How many businesses have you started so far?
So probably like 7, but most of them have sucked. Let's see. The first one was a cheesecake bakery. That one sucked. We had an upholstery business. That one was okay. We ain't really make no money. We had the one where we were doing textile manufacturing in Peru. That one sucked. To this day, man, I have this shirt. It's probably in storage right now. I can't wait till I pull it out. I say it's the most expensive shirt I own. It's a piece of crap t-shirt. It's all messed up and raggedy, but it cost me thousands of dollars. So I say, man, this is the most expensive shirt I wear, and I wear it with pride, because what happened was the people, man, they ordered like Under Armour type shirts, like the breathable kind, right? They want them produced in Peru, bespoke, cut and sew, right? So we weren't just screen printing stuff. We were physically taking fabric, cutting it exactly. It was to spec. So these people, this company, Fitness Rich was the name of this company. So they got them done, got the money. So happy they're taking Instagram and, had the models doing the fitness companies, man, like people look good. And then all of a sudden they started getting complaints that when they got washed, they were coming out like trashed, like just trashed. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, was it just like one? And he was like, nah, man, we're getting multiple complaints. Long story short, I had to give the dude his money back. Did I have money? No. So what did I do, man? I went to the law school. I was in law school. I went to the student loan dude. I was like, hey, man, family circumstances have changed. I got my family to feed. So, hey, let me borrow $4,000 extra dollars. I took out a student loan to make sure I paid this guy back. So that company sucked. Most of my companies have sucked. And you know what, man? In baseball, if you're able to hit it 4 times out of 10, you are one of the greatest who ever lived. I feel it's that way in business too, man. I feel like you usually get a base hit maybe 2 times out of 10, and you might hit a home run once out of 10.
Let me ask you, when you reflect on your previous companies, do you see them as failures or lessons disguised in loss?
Man, both, man. People be like, man, I ain't never took no L's. My L's was lessons. I ain't take no losses. I'm like, no, you lost money. I lost money because I still owe on my student loans, and that Fitness Rich money is still in there somewhere. Heck yeah, I have failures, but I don't. They're true failures if you don't learn from them. Like you're at that point, you're stupid because, man, this is my mantra, man. I want to learn lessons exactly one time. So I'm never going to fail the same way, twice. Nah. And so, man, yes, I got lessons. So my first company, it taught me people are talking. They're screaming, shouting, announcing who they are every day. They're saying, hey, I am irresponsible. Hey, I can't be trusted. Hey, I will lie to you if given the opportunity. They yell these things out to you all day long. The lesson is believe them. Believe them. They're doing this all day long. People are speaking about themselves in the way they act, in the way they show up. They present to somebody else. They're not even dealing with you. They show up late. They do something, and you're like, no. So now you can't play me in that way ever again. You can play me in other ways because there's something called the Johari window. It's known knowns, unknown knowns, known unknowns, and the other and unknown. So basically, there are areas in which like you don't know that you don't know. They're unknowns, and so there's no way that you can go through life and not have failures because you're walking into areas that are unknown. Now, along with that, here goes the phrase that I always tell my son. I tell him, hey man, there are 2 ways to learn a lesson: with your head or with your behind. You get to choose which one. And so as much as possible, I try to choose with my head all day long, as often as possible. There's sometimes I take that lesson in the behind too, and life gives me that.
So let me ask you, which venture taught you the hardest lessons you carry into your consulting work now, because you have to learn a lesson with your behind?
That's a great one. I think that probably my law firm probably taught me the most. And you know what? Here's the difference too. You learn how to risk a certain amount, right? So like when I was younger, I would just risk it all and be like, I can start over. I used to say this when I had my first company. I used to be like, man, I'm 22, man. I could go broke about 4 more times and still be straight. And I did. I proved that theory correct. That sucks, but it's true. And so, man, now I risk a certain amount and I'm like, no, this is for this venture and no more can be risked. And I don't put my family at risk anymore. Before, it was my wife, my kids, ain't nobody eating, holes in shoes, literal holes in shoes, literal, hey, you bought this many groceries, you bought the organic fruit? Nah, go back and take it. My wife still talks to me to this day. We were in Michigan and I made her take groceries back and she felt so ashamed. But man, that's when I had the manufacturing company and we didn't have it, man. So I learned to risk only a certain amount and that's important. But to answer your question, in terms of the one that taught me the most, it's probably the law firm. And it was probably that lesson. Yeah, so I guess I did answer the question. Yeah, it taught me to risk only a certain amount and make sure that the family is good. Make sure that my relationship with my spouse is intact. Because ultimately, man, if wifey is not happy, ain't nobody happy. The kids ain't happy. The dog ain't happy. The cat ain't happy. Everybody gonna be pissed off.
Yeah, but I think it's more about understanding the family dynamics, because I do the same thing. I never risk house money. That's what I call it. I call it house money. That's the money that you use to pay bills, car notes, food. And my main 3 is make sure that you pay your car note first, because you got to get back and forth to work. And then you got to make sure that you eat. So you eat. And everything else is last, because mortgage, you can float that for 6 months. So mortgage, rent, you got 2 months there, but the car note, gas, and food, that got to be taken care of.
You used to say that when we were jits back in Tallahassee.
Sure. Definitely, because I lost it all, and that was the method that I employed. But in the first one that I did first was I paid myself first. But outside of that, the house money is you literally whatever that you need to do that stuff. That 6 months. That 6 months that you have saved up, that doesn't go anywhere. And when you get your money, your paycheck or whatever you need, you set whatever you need aside to make sure that you can take care of house. And then I would go and risk it all. Even with this podcast right now, I don't use house money. It's he'll tell you, I have my hustles that I have. I don't do side hustles. I do something that I call a inline hustle. Something that I do with my job. It's something I can do on a day-to-day basis while I'm doing my job. And whatever I make from that, I take it and put it inside the podcast. And if I have to go outside of that, me and my wife already have an agreement. $200-$300, $500 here. I can go do that, and there's no problem. But I'm definitely with you on that. But
can I just share another thing about that in terms of the lesson? It's not just don't touch house money. It's also learning. There's another word that I think you say earmark. Yeah. Okay. So learning to earmark funds, it is such a simple. Okay, one day I was listening to a podcast before when podcasts were just auditory. Now everything is on video, but it's How I Built That. It's a podcast where they interview founders. It's a NPR podcast. Well, they were interviewing the founder of Red Bull, or it was 5 Hour Energy. It's one of the two. I think it was 5 Hour Energy. And he said something that was very insightful and it struck me. He was like, man, business is not complicated. It's very simple. It's hard, but it's very simple. And he didn't go into that, but I'm kind of glad that he didn't go into it because it forced me to think about what he was trying to say. And what I concluded, because again, he never explained it, was, man, it's very simple. You have something that it's either a good or a service, right? Very simple. Two things that you can do, right? You can either produce a good or provide a service. Okay, we're still simple. Then that good or service, you have expenses, and then you have your revenues, and you have to make sure, the whole goal in business is make sure that the revenue number is bigger than the expense number. And if I do that, then I'm winning. And then once I realized that, I was like, man, I really am making it way too complicated. And so I had to learn, hey, you got to institute controls. You have to know where things are going. I stopped making decisions based off of my gut. Gut is important, but you have to analyze data. You have to say, okay, this is where money is coming from. This is where it's going. This is where we're making the most money. Like you see Pareto's principle. Pareto's principle is the 80-20 rule, right? You see like, man, 80% of my expenses are going out because of this thing that's only providing 20% of the revenue. So if I eliminate that problem, then I eliminate so many of my issues, and vice versa. You start seeing trends like that. And so going back to what I was saying in terms of business not being that hard, I learned to earmark funds as soon as it comes in. So gross revenue, we give 10% of everything that comes in. 10%. It's in another account, right? 10% goes to savings in another account, at least 10%. Sometimes it's 15%. And then I pay myself first. So at least 15% goes to us. And then the rest we allocate to taxes. Oh my gosh. You asked lessons we learned? Man, I owe that dang tax man so much bread. Man, it was like, because they tell you, oh man, start a business. You get caught up out here on TikTok and social media. They'd be like, be your own boss. Man, don't work for the man. Like, yo, you can make it on your own. Like, you could achieve it. I'll be listening to like inspirational videos, and it had like little music in the background, and it should be like a guy like working out, but it'd be like a motivational speaker, like speaking over it, and it's like, today you can achieve, and I was like, yeah, I could do it. And not even thinking about the simple things like, hey, like in April, specifically on the 15th, Uncle Sam gonna want his bread. And bro, I didn't put away Nathaniel Johnson for taxes, man. So it was just under 40 grand.
So did you do your quarterlies?
I didn't. I wasn't doing quarterlies.
Did
I'm
they
doing
penalize
quarterlies
you
now.
for that as well?
Yes, they did. They did penalize me for that. I've paid it all back, thank God, because God is good. And yeah, man. So now I pay myself. I give to for my purpose, and then I pay taxes, and then we eat off of the rest. And that is a very basic concept. It is so simple to just say, hey, I got $10. Let me put away $1 over here. Let me put away $1.50 over here. And let me put away $2.50 over here. And then I could spend the rest that's left over. Very simple concept. Again, you can learn with your head, learn with your butt. Man, I chose my butt on those occasions. But man, they were failures, but they were lessons, man. You ain't gonna get me like that again, for sure.
Well, let's pause right here because I think it's neat for me to talk about the quarterlies that he just mentioned. Quarterlies is something that you have to do to the IRS when you're actually making money in your business. That means that you have to do a quarterly estimate and send them money right then and there every quarter. What your projected income is going to be. Now, if you're running a small business and you're not making that much money and you go to work and at the end of the year you might get money back, it's not a big deal. But when you are a sole business owner and you're making a lot of money and you typically have to pay every year, this is when this becomes a very, very, very big deal. So you definitely, I like you said, all the gurus talk about running a business. This is the part that they don't tell you. You must get those quarterlies done if that's your sole source of business, and if you're making big money, they will come and get you. But before we get to anything else, sit back for 1 minute for this commercial.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man-Made Man podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you are busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy. It's real crazy how the IRS, they don't tell you how much you owe. They be like, you owe us something. And be like, okay, cool. Yeah, let me, how much it is? Everywhere else I go, I'd be like, how much is this? And they tell me how much it is. And this one, they be like, nah, you tell me how much it is. Yeah. No, you tell. And then it'd be like, okay, well, I think it's nah, that ain't it. You ain't saying this enough. So now we gonna hit you. And it's like, you could have just told me. And so now with quarterlies, they don't only want their bread, they like, we want it early and we want it several times a year. And it's like, man. So it's crazy, man. But it's the game. You realize that these are certain parts of the game. And I'd rather have it that like that than the other way around, for sure.
Walk us through the crisis that nearly derailed your business and tell us, how did you choose the difference between preserving your dream and saving your own sanity?
All right. So here's what happened. I figured out that this was the way I was going to make it out, right? Make it out of the rat race. So Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he says, man, these people who are working and just earning a paycheck and they're just trading their time for money, they're in the rat race. But the thing is, people say, oh, well, I'm going to start a business. At that point, you don't necessarily have a business. Most people, the overwhelming majority of people who have a business are actually self-employed, and they're truly still trading time for money. It's just their own time, and they control the revenue a little bit closer than if they punch a clock. But the people are still trading time for money because they're self-employed. So I realized, man, I could be very happy that I got a case and be like, man, I'm getting $6,000. Okay, this is great. And I got that money in my bank account. But guess what? The case might take me some time to do. And then all of a sudden, by the time it's done, I didn't spend any of that time prospecting, trying to bring in new business. So I'm finally done. That money's gone. And all of a sudden, I got nothing. And so the case is done, the money's gone, and I'm back where I started because I wasn't prospecting. So I was like, man, what the heck? I'm keep going through the same cycle where it's like high highs, low lows, high high, low lows. And everybody who's self-employed, they know about that. So I was like, okay, here's how we get at this. I got to create a mill. And when I say a mill, I don't mean a million. I mean a MILL, something that brings in revenue and brings in opportunities for me. And so what I did was I was like, what areas of law can I go into where they can, where they continue bringing me business? And so I went into the most unsexy area of law of all time. There will never be a Law and Order episode. There will never be a movie, you know, where there's a lawyer, a sexy male lawyer, a sexy female lawyer who does what I was doing. I was doing evictions. And that, you know what I'm saying? Law and Order, you got criminal attorneys, you know, suits, there's a business attorney, litigators, you know. I'm out here evicting cats, right? But what I figured out is these people who come to me, about 80% of them are just mom and pop. Somebody got married, husband had a house, wife had a house. They move into one of them and they rent the other one out. So that's mom and pop. The other people, they are the 20%, they own multiple properties. Sometimes some of my clients have hundreds, right? So those people, they keep the phone ringing. And I created this mill, right? But to answer your question, there was a time where in trying to create this mill, I was like, let me use marketing to keep the phone ringing. And so I found a friend of mine. He created this website, right? And he paid this marketing company and the phone was ringing. And he was like, hey, man, the attorney I was working with, he was a realtor. The attorney I was working with retired. So I want you to take over and basically take all the eviction leads that I'm getting. And as a realtor, the way what he was doing, which is really smart too, is after an eviction, you have this empty property. The problem tenant is gone, but now you got to either rent it out again or sell it. At that point, if you found an attorney through his website, then he has you in the pipeline and he's like, hey, now that the eviction is done, if you're looking to rent it out, I'll rent it out for you as a realtor, or I'll help you sell it if you're looking to sell it. Brilliant idea. But I was the attorney behind it that would actually do the eviction. So I saw what he was doing. It was going really well. I was like, man, it's working. Like, I don't got to work for it. Like, I just sit back and people come to me. This is great. So I was like, I saw what he was doing. I was like, man, I could do this. So, bro, when I tell you, I did this as unintelligently as one could possibly do a thing. Name an activity and think about how to do that thing unintelligently. Like, I don't know, like bake without oven mitts, like just grab it with your, like, it was more unintelligent than that. You know what I'm saying? So I just opened up a Google AdWords account and I was like, hey, I think these are the most populated counties in Florida. Do I know that they have a bunch of tenants or landlords? No, I don't know any of that. I'm just like, all right, Dade, Broward, Orange County, Hillsborough, Duval County. I think I did like 7. I think I did St. Pete. And I was just like, hey, here's my credit card. Just charge it up. People gonna call because they're gonna see my ads. I thought I did a great ad. I was like, hey, do you need an eviction? Click here. Well, the thing about it is people can click and that's when they charge you. It's pay-per-click. It's AdWords. Bro, I got 0 calls from that. And there's 2 problems, right? Number one, it's my card is getting charged and I'm spending money. The more serious problem is nobody is calling me, so I'm not getting any money. So I'm just like, basically, it happened so quick, man. It was insane, Charles. I was like 30 grand in the hole in like a month and a half, man. It was so crazy. I'm on the GK trip with y'all boys in Denver. This is when it happened, when I realized like, yo, the wheels came off. And I was like, man, I can't pay this Amex bill for nothing. And man, it took me so long to get out of that hole, because when you owe 30 grand and your system is broken, and that's who I owed Amex that. I still owe the tax man. Don't remember the tax man? So I'm just like, oh. And man, I go back and I think, man, I'm like, man, could I have avoided? And I absolutely could have. Like, you know, like people are like, man, you got to risk it all. Like if you don't jump, you never know. No, I've learned there's a better way to do things. And how I would have done it, man, hire a marketing company. And yes, you got to pay them for it. But man, they know how to set up everything on the back end with the links and make sure that the calls come in a certain way. That's how I would have done it. And I would have started off piece by piece, just done Dade County. Then let's move up to Broward afterward. Man, here's the thing though. When you're young and you're ambitious, nothing is enough. Success is not enough. Money's not enough. Your highs are not enough. And that needed to get dealt with in my heart first, because it doesn't matter what you achieve. You're always looking to the person next to you. And so I was like, hey, I'm Mark Zuckerberg's age. He's killing me. You know, he got a couple B's. I don't got a TH. You know what I'm saying? I barely got an H. I barely got 100. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, that had to get dealt with in my heart. It's just, you know, the comparison game. So that, you know, I don't remember the second part of your question, but that was definitely the biggest failure. And that had to get dealt with in my heart.
No, go ahead.
All right. So, man of God.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned your eviction business.
Yes.
You ran a legal counsel practice solely for landlords.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel a dilemma evicting tenants in dire circumstances? And how did you as a man of God justify those actions?
Knew you were going to ask about that. I've gotten this question a lot, man. Here's what I found. I didn't represent slumlords. I remember there were some who would call, and I did take cases from people who I was like, man, this person is not savory. And you know, we did business exactly once with those individuals. Remember I said 80% of my clients were mom and pop. Man, like I said, you're dealing with people getting married, they each have a house, then they move into one. In that instance, when they have two mortgages like that and the person is not paying, man, I've seen that derail people's lives. And you're talking like marriages suffering. You're talking like their kids not having opportunities. The other one I saw a lot was a mom passes away, son inherits his mom's property, and then he's like, man, he's not ready to sell it. He's not ready to let it go. So he's like, let me rent it out. Seen that a lot. Man, same thing. That could really derail people's lives. And so I saw a lot more that those people were doing wrong by their tenants than their tenants were fully taking advantage. We probably don't have time for me to go into the amazing stories that I have of tenants doing wild stuff. But man, that was the overwhelming majority.
Give us the craziest thing that you saw there.
The craziest story that I have from a tenant off the top of my head. Well, this one is it was funny to me. Nobody ever laughs when I tell it, but I thought it was hilarious because this guy was living in an efficiency. For those of you who don't know, an efficiency is it's like part of the house that maybe like was walled off. So they share utilities and they share basically a wall. So a lot of times you could hear what's going on the other side and the person doesn't have their own meter. This dude was doing some shady stuff. He was apparently those scooters that you see in downtown areas, like some of them, a company charges them, but in other cases, they pay people to take them to their house and charge up the scooters. So this guy owed months and months and months of rent, and he was basically using up the power and the efficiency to charge up these scooters. So he was coming up, charging up these electric scooters, using up the landlord's power when the landlord, like he's already late on rent. And then what made it real funny, the landlord looked on his social media and he was like taking pictures on the landlord's Benz, like, yeah, man, life is good. I was like, yeah, he sends me this. He's like, show this to the judge. And the judge don't care about that, man. The judge is like, hey, did you pay the rent? What do you want to do? Kick him out? Okay, that's all the judge cares about. But I was rolling. I was like, nah, man. And first of all, why you don't got your Facebook private, man? But anyway, that I'll never forget that one. That was pretty funny.
Social media is changing everything right now, right? People knowing they shouldn't be doing things and still doing it.
And they're posting about it. So yeah, that was not, he was like, that's not his Benz, that's my Benz. And why is he touching my car?
I wanna go in a slightly different direction for a second here.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, as a Black Dominican man, have you ever felt forced to choose between celebrating your heritage and fitting into mainstream Black culture?
Yeah, man. Wow, man. That's a whole podcast, man. Look, growing up in South Florida, I had the luxury of picking basically a third culture. I didn't know that was the case. I didn't know that I had that luxury. I thought that's just how the world was. And then I moved further north to Tallahassee, but ideologically, it's way further south. So, man, the options are pretty much white or Black, you know? And then you got a sprinkle of Mexican, but they live over there and they just the working class. I didn't know that there was a third culture. When I say a third culture, I don't only mean Hispanics and how they dominate like in South Florida, but also I had the secondary challenge of not being from there and then not being from here. So I'm not Hispanic enough, Dominican enough to be from Dominican Republic to be there. So Dominicans shun me for that. And then I'm not American enough to be American. And so, man, I had to go on a little journey and figure out who I was and figure out, you know, what matters to me and look at history. And that was really challenging, man. And now I identify as a Black man. I am a Black man. It's not what I identify as. I'm a Black man. But like, what do I do with, you know, my ethnicity, being Hispanic? And I've learned to embrace it all, man, and to be comfortable in those spaces. And so, you know, I'm going to rock with some, you know, old school Black music, but I'm also going to throw on some bachata and merengue. And I've learned, shouts out to Black people, man. I'll tell this story briefly, man, as quickly as I can, but I got to fam wide-eyed, and I was like, HBCU, 95% Black, and I'm around here telling people that I'm not Black. You know, like Godfrey makes fun of us. He'd be like, I'm no Black, I'm no Dominican. That was me. That's a real thing. That isn't a bit. He's like talking about stuff that he sees like in life. My mom, God bless her, she on the census when 2020, she put me down as white, and I was like, who did this? And she was like, I did. And I was like, no, I erased it. I put on Black. Like that is a Dominican thing. And there are historical things that, you know, we could get into later that make it that way. The point is, they challenged me and they're like, so if you're not Black, what are you? And I'm like, I'm Hispanic. And they're like, that's not a race. And they're like, so you're white. And I'm like, no, I'm not white. And then they're like, so you're Black. And I'm like, no, I'm Dominican. And basically, they embrace me. They're like, no, you're Black. You're one of us. And man, that's something that I've seen about Black people, period. Man, they're quick to put an arm around and be like, man, you one of us. You invited to the cookout. Like you with us, because I feel like there's some historical things that went on as well, where it was like, hey, it's us, you know, against the world. And so, you know, that has shaped me big time in who I am today. And so, you know, but I did face lots of challenges trying to figure that out, for sure.
real quick, I want you to speak on that because you said when your mother marked you down as white, and you said that there's some cultural things that go on there. Can you give us a brief history of what that is?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, you've gotten it on the American side too. I mean, where the AKAs, you know, you had to be lighter than a paper bag in order to join their sorority. I remember watching a documentary on Tuskegee, Alabama, and they were talking about the mayor of Tuskegee, you know, had been a light-skinned man for years and years and years, and they got like their first dark-skinned mayor like in the early 2000s. So basically, the history of that is the same as here. It's like if it was whiter, it was righter. You know what I'm saying? So, but phrases will pervade, right? So like. In Hispanic culture, you got something they call good hair, and in Black culture as well, good hair, right? And good hair is like, you know, looser curls, and you know, finer texture. Whereas if the society is dominated by people who are European, and the working class are Black, then opportunities are going to go to people who look like the ruling class. It's the classic birds of a feather flock together, right? And so, you know, it made it so that anything that was Blacker was shunned because those individuals were also shunned and weren't given opportunities. Then you have the whole dynamic of Haiti being right next door. So you have the dynamic of Haiti being right next door, and they were the only country to basically be able to throw off their oppressors. So they stayed Black because the Europeans weren't there as long and weren't able to infiltrate that country in the way that they did all the other Hispanic countries. But basically, the more European you looked, the more European you were, the more opportunities you had, and so. As a result, it was not popular, fun, desired to have anything that was African or to hold on to that. And so you have a whole country that historically would say things. This is a real phrase that my people in my family have said, and it's a thing that's known. It's you had to improve the race, right? It doesn't have the same. It sounds way worse in English. But it's a common phrase. And what that means is you want to get a spouse that's lighter than you, that has lighter eyes, that has quote unquote good hair, and that's how you improve the rate. You basically make your lineage.
Wait a minute. So you saying that it sounds better in Spanish?
It doesn't sound as bad. It sounds pretty horrible in English. You got to improve the race, but it's mejorar la raza. It's a real thing. And I brought Lauren home, and Lauren is darker than me, and she's an African American. She's a Black woman, and my grandmother was like, "What are you doing? You have to improve the race." And I was like, "Man, get out of here." And it's a real thing.
So, do you think that you wasn't improving the race? You know, as he said, or
man, I don't care about that, man. It's an antiquated thought that. Man, when you're born in the 20s, like she was, and you don't like, it's between working in the fields or getting an office job based on how you look, and you see that for your kids, then, I mean, they felt like they had to do what they had to do. And my grandfather was lighter skinned than my grandmother was. And so maybe that was, you know, what she felt she had to do. But man, I don't subscribe to that, man. I fell in love with, I went to HBCU and I was like, what is this? I saw them Black bodies. I say bodies. And I was like, hey, forget it. I saw them Black booties and I was like, what is this? We don't got this.
I remember that gleam in your eyes, bro. Like you wanted you a sister. Bad. I remember that. Like
yeah, man.
There was no other option for you.
Hey, man, it was made to be. And I was dating this Hispanic chick here in Miami, long distance, my freshman year. And man, when we broke up, I felt that first semester back, that first day on campus, I was like, I'm free. Yo, it hit different. Yeah, man.
Let's stick on the track with your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids start out black and also inside the world. How do you decide which heritage to emphasize for them each day?
Man, so they're both, right? But I focus on the Dominican side because I know that it's easy for that to get lost because we live in the US. And so I speak to my children in Spanish. They most of the time answer in English, but we'll work on that. But that's something I learned from my friend who was working on his PhD, and he had adopted four little black kids from this one mom out of the system. That's outside of the point. The point is, he basically Puerto Rican spoke to them in Spanish, and in Tallahassee made it so that his kids are fluent. And so I was like, man, I could do something like that. So I emphasize that, but not just the language, it's the culture stuff. So it's the playing the music. It's the going to Dominican Republic every summer as often as possible. So we're going to Dominican Republic in 2 weeks, and I want them to be there. I want them to know what it is that they came from. But you know, also on the black side, they know they're going to FAMU. They know that they're going to, at minimum, a HBCU. Like, that stuff is primary. They know about the heritage and what happened with black people. So spring break trip, two spring breaks ago, we went to the wackest place on planet Earth. Like, when I told people where I was going for spring break, they're like, what? Why? We went to Memphis. We're like, that's not a spring break location. But I wanted to go to the Lorraine Motel with them. I wanted to go to the Civil Rights Museum. I wanted them to feel that. I wanted them to see that, to experience that. That's important. And so they have to get both.
That's awesome. You know, I appreciate and respect the fact that you want them to know and be able to fully embrace and be able to navigate between both sides of their culture, you know, cultural heritages. But within the Black community, oftentimes we support whatever it is that is the Black narrative, right? Irrespective of what the appropriate moral stance should be, in my personal estimation. So let me just make that part clear. Let me say this though. Malcolm X said, "I am for the truth, no matter who tells it. I am for justice, no matter who it's for or who it's against. Should people of color stand by each other unconditionally or call out wrongdoing within its own ranks?"
Man, I don't think anything should be done unconditionally, because that leads to a different kind of ignorance that can be very dangerous. I think that we should stand for truth, no matter, just like you said, no matter who tells it. And you know, that requires us to call out our own people and to say, hey, man, what you did or the way you did it was unacceptable. And you know, like, that is not the same as giving somebody unconditional love or support. I mean, love is one thing, but support, it needs to be backed by, you know, it's a deal. It's an exchange. It's like, hey, I'm supporting you because you're doing the right things. And I mean, you're the key, you're the main caller outer of especially things that Black people do and Black people say. So y'all too, you tell me, because especially him.
So let me tell you why I do that, because I absolutely believe in us as a people. I believe that we add so much value. I believe that we're such a talented people. Why would I not hold you accountable? Why would I not demand from you that you give me your best? Because I recognize that when you give me your best, society as a whole is moved forward. Not just so our community is better, our city is better, our region is better, our state is better, our nation is better, because I pressed you to give me the best of you. And if I can't challenge you in that way, then I don't want to be connected to you. I'd rather sever ties than allow for you to stay stuck and stagnant, as opposed to give me the gift of your masculine greatness. That's supposed to be given to the world. So
I
there's a
agree.
book that's called The Way of the Superior Man, and all it talks about is giving your masculine gift to the world.
I agree. I mean, we come from a culture. I mean, this man right here, Mr. Life and GK, I feel like that's what it was about.
Mhm.
My very first memory, not my very first, but one of the key memories early on was this man sitting all the men of the church down and telling us verbatim, man, we don't need no sorry man in this church. Like, if you ain't being a man, if you ain't respecting these women, if you ain't doing this, man, we don't need you here. We don't need no sorry man in this church. And I was like, yo. Now, mind you, I am 18 years old, and I'm like, okay, this is the standard. You know what I'm saying? And that was impactful to this day. I be telling people about that experience, but also I hold that standard where I go. When people oftentimes will be like, they'll see me do something and they'll say, oh man, your mother raised you well. And they don't know that it was actually GK and Mr. Life and those men.
So I think you just further established my point, though. So what you just said is that he took the time out and asserted himself, and he gave his masculine gift. And when he gave his masculine gift, it challenged you, it challenged all the other brothers, myself included, to make sure that we were given our masculine gift as well. And so that's one of the reasons why I love challenging people of color to actually pull up and do better, right? I can't accept your excuses. So Mr. Life is often talking about, a man needing to move with a purpose and a plan, and so I think that all too often what happens is especially inside of our community, a lot of people are doing the exact opposite. They're being desultory, right? That means you're moving without a purpose. That means you're moving without a plan. You have no energy. You have no vigor. You're not asserting yourself. What they're doing is they're operating with velleity, right? So they got these grand ideas, wishful thinking, but no inclination to actually put in the work to bring it to fruition so that they can improve the quality of their lives, the quality of their family lives, the quality of their communities. And all I want to do is I want to see those people that look like me to really thrive, because I think we can take a bigger portion of this pie. Me, I ain't got no malice, no race in my heart towards anybody, but I do want to see my people that look like me, my skin folk, actually begin to act like my kin folk and pull themselves up, as opposed to us being at war with one another and tearing one another down through killing one another with violence and gang activity and drug and this debased, degenerate, excuse me, I can't speak, degenerate music that we're pumping into our communities.
Yeah.
Well, see, the thing is, you talk about that. You talk about these dreams that they have, and that's a vision. What we fail to realize is a lot of these guys don't have a purpose in the plan. But I think when we talk about this, it comes from other men helping instilling that into them. And the unfortunate part of that is the men that instills that into them are those men that's above them, where it could be come from gang culture or street culture. And so the vision that they have is to get locked into their purpose of that guy and his plan that they see. So I think what we're doing now, so Ricky Johnson said something on our last interview, because I talked about the mentor-mentee relationship. And I said that mentees need to understand they need to reach out to the mentor to make things happen. And he said that's not necessarily the case anymore. And that really struck with me, because he said that we got to do more reaching out ourselves to make sure that we touching a lot more people. And I think that's where we at right now, definitely inside the Black community, inside the Hispanic community as well, is that we're seeing to where our youth are getting turned about and turned around because the wrong people are reaching out and touching them, and not the right people.
And that's exactly where I was going to go next. It's just that I feel like, to add what you're saying, CB Smith, is just, it's important to call it out on forums like this and social media, things of that nature. But if we aren't doing the breaking of the bread, the sitting down, looking people in the whites of their eyes and spending time with people like that, then I could say I I could say it's like cheap lip service. Like you're doing it, but it's cheap. What's expensive is time. What's expensive is really giving of your effort and looking a young guy in his eyes and talking to them about their life in a different way. Let me talk about, I call him my young boy. I'm his employer. But even that, you know, I gave him this job because I'm like, man, I see something in this guy. Like, he is not polished. Not yet. He is not polished. He is a young black dude with dreads, and you know, he got a ways to go. But I see that he has in him what I had. And if someone would have taken the time to mentor me, like, man, I would have gotten the phrases further faster. And so taking the time to break bread with this guy, to figure out how he thinks, and to say, no, wait, you want to think about this, man, that takes time and effort. But I think that it's just like we could scatter a bunch of seeds and say, hey, we're gonna or we're gonna plant some plants and we're just gonna put it on top of the soil, on top of the grass, versus saying, I'm gonna dig this hole. I'm gonna make sure that these roots are all covered. You cover that thing down after you put in the hole, put the plant in, cover it back up. Man, that plant right there has a much greater chance of surviving versus if you just put it on top of the grass and saying, hey, I planted this. And so I think that is something that Black men should make a premium. Guys like you, Mr. Life, myself, UCB Smith, is identifying a young guy who has a little bit of sauce on him that we can, man, help elevate to another level.
Let's switch gears here. Let's get back to our original topic before we got on, which was a great debate, was a great talk. Get back to race here. And President Trump, we all know, is having ICE go around and pretty much scooping up a lot of Hispanics. And you actually did that type of law before, where you did immigration law. So speak briefly on that, but how, as a Hispanic Black man, what are your thoughts and how does that impact you and your community?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I think that they're informed by what you said. I'm not just a Hispanic man. I'm someone who was on the front lines of immigration work for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm someone whose father was deported from this country. And so I felt the sting of that in a different way than a lot of people. I have a lot of thoughts. One of them is I'm frustrated by the Trump support by a lot of Hispanics who either A, didn't care about what's going on, the possibility of what's going on now, or B, was like, well, that's not me. There are people who there's whole groups. I'm not talking about something that is a secret, but there's something called the Cuban Adjustment Act, and it's a law. And if you are here and you have a lawful entry and you are here for more than a year and a day, you're eligible for a green card. So maybe people are like, oh, that's them, that's not us. And the Trump support is frustrating because I feel like in everything else, like in the music, in the food, it's like, oh, Latino, like we're together, like, you know, it's us. And then when it came to that, I just didn't feel that. So that was frustrating because it's like, hey man, like this is a very real possibility. And now as I see it play out, it's hurtful because I see children being taken out of schools and graduations being broken up by ICE. I see people who have truly here not to do harm. They're here to provide for their families. This is the overwhelming majority. Are there bad apples? Of course. But man, seeing that is very painful. And then knowing what that looks like and then hearing the misinformation that is disseminated. Oh man, that really pisses me off.
Go a little bit more into detail about that.
In terms of the misinformation, I mean, that abounds because, you know, there's only one truth, but there's a billion lies, you know. But some of the things that I've heard is that they will deport like issues about who they're deporting, you know. They'll only deport this type of person versus that type of person, the type of people who are coming in, how they come in, people not understanding the process. Like, you know, it's something that is so complex that a lot of attorneys who've been practicing immigration law for a couple of years, they still don't understand the depths of it. And when you have educated yourself via, you know, Fox News, MSNBC, NPR, and you try to form an opinion and say, hey, I'm gonna beat a drum based off of this source of information that is going to be skewed one way or another, versus, you know, I'm like, hey, the people coming in, like, oh, here's one that I heard that frustrated me. They're just coming over. Anybody could just come in. And I'm like, look, I'm not at the border, but I understand that there's an organization called Customs and Border Protection, and they inspect people. It's something that we ask. That's the first question you ask. Were you inspected or paroled into the country? And there's a third status, which is EWI, entered without inspection. Those are people who sneak around the border. But if they could just come in, they wouldn't have to sneak across the border. So I'm like, who told you that a Democratic president is just going to let people in? Like, they were like, oh, Biden was just letting everybody in. And I'm like, nah, that's not how it works at all. Like, these people pay coyotes. Oftentimes, we're talking about people coming from Central and America and Mexico. They pay them money to sneak them over. Those individuals snuck over, but there was no such thing as a Democratic president, as far as I know. I'm not there. I'm not at, you know, Brownsville and the one near Tucson. I forgot all these border towns. I'm not there, but from everything I know, you have to be inspected. And so for them to spew rhetoric like that about this topic, it's just one area. They're going to do it in terms of every area, because we live in a social media age. We live in a day of 24-hour cable news networks. So there's going to be misinformation that is going to be skewed, but I don't get into all those other areas. I know about this one area because I've been there with families when their loved ones were deported. Let me tell you the worst situation. This is my very first deportation, and this is why I take it so seriously. Like, I joke and kid about mostly everything in life. I'm serious about maybe like 5% of things in life. But this one right here messed me up. There was nothing I could do. I did everything perfectly from an attorney perspective, except I didn't communicate to the family well enough. This guy got deported. He was the sole breadwinner of this family, and his wife, he had a 1-year-old daughter, a 1.5, almost 2-year-old daughter. His wife was 9 months pregnant. And then I'm the one charged with helping him, getting him out. There's nothing I could do. He was a reentry, which means he was already deported once, and he came back. At that point, you're stuck. There's nothing you could do. He gets deported again. He gets sent back again. His wife has the baby. So now he's the sole breadwinner, has a 2-year-old, and then his wife just gave birth. And I'm like, yo. And then the person who referred me the case, she is in my ear like, what happened? You didn't do anything. And then his family members, who were coming to me who was like, oh, you're going to help him. You're going to help the whole family. So I ended up losing that opportunity with the family. I ended up losing the referral relationship. And then I feel like crap because it's the very first deportation that I have. And this is the only person who works in their family. They got a 2-year-old, 2-year-old, and then they got a brand newborn, and he didn't get to see the birth of his child because he was deported. And I'm like, man, shoot, this is the reality of that area of law. And that's why I take it so serious.
So,
But wasn't he deported already once?
He was a reentry.
Reentry, which means that he already know they're looking for him.
People come in and look, that I'm not defending what he did. I'm not defending what he did at the time. It took me a while to parse out, to really analyze like what I could have done differently and analyze. And now I know today I sit well with myself because I'm like, there's nothing I could have done. But the mistake that I made, I didn't tell the family from the moment I saw the file. I should have been like, oh, he's a reentry. Hey, look, there's nothing I could do. Keep your money. I'm done. Oh, matter of fact, they asked for a refund, and I gave it back to them. So not only did I not get the money from the family, I messed up the referral relationship. They wanted their money back, and I gave it to them, and I didn't. That was where I messed up as an attorney, and now this guy is deported. Now what he did, I can't defend that.
So here's my issue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of them people that voted for Trump. Okay. I voted for secure borders. I voted to have law and order. I voted for strength. Okay. I voted for sober-minded governance because I think we've lost track of all of that. So when you talk to me about people being deported for breaking the law, it's hard for me to be fully empathetic apart from to the people that are impacted, like the families and the loved ones that are now left without a provider. So I'm very empathetic towards them, but it's hard for me to be empathetic towards the person that got deported because he created the scenario. So no one was crying for me when I got in trouble and I got my butt locked up because I committed a criminal act. So why am I sitting here being, this bleeding heart for someone who was in the wrong? I broke the law. I had to pay the consequence. He broke the law. He has to pay the consequence.
So there are several layers to that. First of all, I'm not like, I try not to be like most guys, and I want to have compassion. So in the instance of you and other young guys that I work with, like I would have been crying for you when you broke the law and you were locked up. That's first of all. Like, people make mistakes, and I am not the type of guy to say, oh, well, they broke the law, so this is what they deserve. Like, I know I've done stuff and I've just never gotten caught. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, though, in terms of breaking the law, immigration law is not necessarily it's not law the same way. These are not judges. The judges are technically admin judges, and immigration law is not. It's not just so. I'm getting a little technical here, but there's the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act. That stuff that's law. That's federal law. But a lot of how it's operated is done through political appointments and direction from those appointments. So whoever is running DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and based on that president's agenda, that's how they're going to operate. So things change drastically, and so to say, this is the law, it's not always the law. It's the regulation for now, but it might not be the regulation in a couple years when another person is in office. But lastly, in terms of you being an American, that's fine. And anyone, they can have that opinion, that feeling, that sentiment. But someone who's a Hispanic and has traveled the streets and knows what those countries are like and understands the psyche and the rationale of someone who would escape to this country, and the fact that we would see that Ukraine is having a war with Russia, and we're like, man, I stand with Ukraine, but not say, man, I stand with this person who is dealing with MS-13 in their country and is dealing with basically a domestic terrorist organization. And so as a Hispanic, someone who wouldn't say like, I get it, let's figure out a way to legitimize or legally get them here, but to say like, no, us four and no more, when your people essentially came here through the same means, escaping political pressure or escaping conditions that were dangerous. I'm just like, how? Because your people were beneficiaries of things that now you benefit from, and you know what it's like over there. So you who's probably never experienced that, seen that, I get that. But I more so am looking at my people and being like, hey, come on, man, it ain't right.
Okay. So your point's heard. Your point's been taken. Here's what I would say to that. I'd make 2 points. I have a friend that's married to a woman who she lives in the DR right now. She'll be moving here next month. So he's constantly going back and forth to the DR, and he's like, Charles, there's definitely a difference between the DR and here. Clearly, the DR is a third world country, although it has its beautiful places. You can clearly see that a lot of it's in a place of embattlement. I took him through Belgrade, and he was like, "Oh, this reminds me of the DR." And then I took him to my part of Belgrade.
Reminds me of Haiti. It's worse than DR.
Yeah. Then I took him to my part of Belgrade, and he was like, "Holy crap, get me out of here! This is way worse than DR."
It's
so
more
I
like
understand
Iraq.
what you're talking about. Yeah, they call it baby Iraq. Some
Yeah.
people. So I understand what you're talking about, the conditions that people come up in, and the things that they're trying to escape from. Because I had to escape from that myself, right? So I can fully empathize with that aspect, but everything that you said, right? I'm not a legal mind. I'm not. But I can ask you one question, and the answer to this question will determine whether or not, you can help me to take a different position on everything that you've offered. Because at this point, while I understood on an intellectual level, my simple question would be to you: did they come here illegally? Because if so, they broke the law.
It's very nuanced. Some did, absolutely, and some overstayed. It's nuanced.
Did they come here illegally? Are they here illegally? There's no nuance there. Either it's illegal or it's not.
See, but I mean, we're talking about a country where it was once illegal for me to sit at the same lunch counter as someone else. Like, that's a very poor barometer of whether something is right or not, whether it's legal or not. I mean, I think that you have so many areas of law that are legal or illegal, and we could wax eloquent as to those things. I mean, whether people should be locked up for certain marijuana charges, whether schools should have the authority to ban trans. I guess they would be trans women from competing in sports. There are certain areas where it's like the Supreme Court in the spring is going to decide that very issue, whether schools have the opportunity to, and they may say that's illegal, but I don't think that should be our barometer for whether a thing is right or not.
Okay. So then if that shouldn't be our barometer, should we just abolish law and let's just be a lawless nation?
No, that's a slippery slope.
So
of course.
So then we gotta have something that we're measured by.
Of course,
we gotta have
absolutely.
some standard that we're going to put in place.
Of course,
that we're all as a collective going to choose to abide by.
Sure, absolutely. And I think that I am not the one to have all the answers. It's a very complex issue. We don't have the time to get into all of it, but I think that it's important to not just look at what is written in the law, because I mean, that's the reason why we have 3 branches of government, because the legislative branch alone can't help us figure out all the things in our society that will make it function.
So if you all are enjoying what you're seeing right now, do us a big favor, because for us to keep this going, we need for you to like and subscribe. As you see, we're trying to do great work to bring you Man-Made Men here. So it would be greatly appreciated if you can like, subscribe, and share with a friend that you think could use this inside their life. Man-Made Men. We pause right now for a brief commercial break. But before we get to that, like and subscribe, and we'll be back in 1 minute.
Recording on camera 2. So on the next episode of Man-Made Men, we pull back the veil and speak with one of our most dynamic and successful young men yet, Joshua Montgomery.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. You said that your wife had cancer, and what was your thoughts running through your head as a husband, a father?
Every time I talk about it, I end up it just takes me back to that place. The notion that if something's wrong with my best friend, and God forbid,
Retired by 43, Joshua teaches a masterclass on climbing the corporate ladder and escaping it.
Learn the way that company makes money, and then find out what they're missing out on, like what opportunities they're leaving off the table. And then you become, inline hustle. Then you become the guy, right? Like there's so many stories about like people who left the corporation to go start a side business. The side business was basically the things that the big company didn't want to pursue. They're like, we'll do it. And then they make a small $1 million, but you only learn that from sitting at your job, learning it, seeing what opportunities are, paying attention, reading things, picking up things, and be like, oh, I can go do that.
He speaks about fatherhood and what it is to be a man. But most of all, he speaks about his true passion, his wife, and his family.
But that 45-minute window, we sat in that room, in the waiting room for the next appointment as we just left. And that's when I was like, man, I'm going to lose my wife. Does this job sacrifice or cause me to sacrifice the things that are the most valuable to me? And as a man that's a husband and a man that's a father, or if you're both, which I happen to be, if you're not looking at it from that, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of respect for you.
Join us on the next episode of Man-Made Men. See you there.
And we're getting ready to get it started in 5, 4, 3, 2. I have one on my mind.
So I just got to let you know, man, I actually enjoy playing devil's advocate. I had to press you on that last conversation there a little bit. I had to challenge you. But not only do I like playing devil's advocate, but sometimes I thoroughly enjoy just playing the villain role. So you know me long enough to know that by now. So as a treasurer of the Bar Association, two of them, yes. So a natural segue after what we just been talking about, in my estimation, is that, do you think that the legal profession does enough to dismantle the racial barriers that you spoke about when you talked about us being a nation where there was a time where you couldn't sit at the bar of a restaurant? Do you think the legal profession does enough to dismantle those racial barriers, or is it complicit in maintaining them?
I gotta say that we're not doing enough, right? But I'm not so sure that it's just on the legal profession. I mean, like I said before, there are 3 branches of government, right? So there's the judicial, right? So that's where we're talking about. And then you have judges who are appointed. People like myself are appointed, or we run for office. And so those individuals help to do what they need to do in terms of enforcing the law or adjudicating the law, rather. But then you get the executive branch and you got policing, right? And that is a whole different area, and it depends on the populace and who we're electing. But then you got the legislative branch, which a lot of times is made up of lawyers, and these legislators are, signing into law different laws that this is going to sound super cliche, but they They keep my people down. I mean, I don't know. I could make it more flowery, but they keep our people down. So I think that the answer is no, we're not doing enough. But I don't think we're doing enough all the way around. But when I see things like, people getting locked away for things that are ultimately going to make them worse individuals. When you go into prison, I've been into a lot of prisons because, practicing criminal law and then immigration law, detention centers. These individuals come out as really good criminals. And I'm just like, man, sometimes it just feels like we're just fighting an uphill battle, trying to get people to give them more time, lock them up. And I'm just like, what's the objective? I guess that's more on the legislative side. Man, there's more to be done. There's more work all around.
So what would be your suggestion to help curb the recidivism rate?
Man, what I've seen, because this is part of when I say when you interview me in 5 years, it's programs. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a reentry program. This is what I wrote my law graduation thesis about: reentry programs based on entrepreneur. So it's going to be an entrepreneurial incubator program, a reentry program based on that. So basically, man, you have the greatest pool of entrepreneurial talent in this country locked away. I used to think it was in Wharton, it was at Columbia Business School, it was at Harvard Business School. Yeah, right, man. Those dudes can run circles around anybody at Wharton, right? They understand logistics. They understand sales. They understand leadership and the hierarchy of leadership. They understand corporate structure. They understand accounting from a basic standpoint in terms of revenue and expenses, supply. They understand these things. Now that just needs to be honed into areas that are not illegal and that are not going to end them, in jail or dead. But man, the entrepreneur, the raw talent is there. And so it's going to be an incubator approach to a reentry program. And that's my vision. But programs, to answer your question, they work. And certain administrations look fondly on programs, and certain other administrations, they just want to build prisons and say, hey, let's just lock more and more up. But that's what I've seen has been effective. And that's why that's going to be my approach.
Okay. So I only have 2 remaining questions. First question, you just spoke about, your vision and what you would like to do and build as far as programs and how you envision you being able to kind of help with the recidivism rate. But that's something that's down the road in the future, 5 years from now, as you establish and articulate it. My question to you is to this point in your journey, as you're working to bring the vision to fruition, and everything that you work to birth and manifest. What has been your apotheosis? What has been your zenith moment?
Okay, you're going to have to break that down. So what's been the moment in which to this point I've been like, oh man, we hit something, like it's been my high moment, my zenith. Okay. I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because CB Smith he'll shoot some words out. Like my dog play word with friends, and he be killing people. I know he does. So man, to this point, from on the business side, I think I'm living it, man. Right now we're at a head count of 19. Now, we talk about, Amazon and Google and these big organizations, they got thousands of employees. But for me to own a company where I feed every two weeks, I see how much I pay out, and I'm like, dang, this is crazy. I employ a wife and the husband. Man, that is exciting, to be used by God to bless families. You know what I'm saying? They have 2 daughters. I help feed their daughters. Man, that's man, it gets me a little emotional. That's crazy. And then above that, every Wednesday we have book club. Right now we're going through The Richest Man in Babylon.
Great book.
Great book.
Question, both of you have read that book. Is that a book about efficiency and management and being better at work? No, it's a book about personal finance. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, man, I want to improve my people's lives. And ultimately, I think that it'll come back to me. But even if it doesn't, that's not what it's about. But I get to be a part of that. And that's a blessing. And so we're there discussing, hey, man, the 7 cures for a lean purse. What do you think about? Are you putting at least 10% away? Why not? Like, what's going on? And that's a blessing, man. In addition to feeding families, I get to be a part of that. And then on Thursdays, we have Bible study. And we're going through the Bible. And that's one of the interview questions. I say, hey, look, we have a Bible study every Thursday. We're going through the book of Luke right now. Is that a problem for you? Do you have any issues with being a part of a Bible study? And they give me their answers. To this day, nobody has said no. Everybody's like, oh, no, that sounds cool. Yeah, let's do it. But
can you legally do that in America?
Maybe my employees aren't in America. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Hey,
I have 3 of those myself.
So the point is, though, I feel like I'm at my zenith because we're 19 and growing. It's not like this is the peak, but we're in the process of hiring more. So I'm here right now, and it's a blessing. There are times where I sit back and I'm just like, wow, this is incredible.
What is the one thing that you want to do since you're right now at your zenith that you can do for your wife? What is the one thing that because you talk about you're at your zenith right now, but what is the zenith moment that something you want to procure, buy, purchase, experience that you want to do for your wife?
For my wife. Okay, I'll talk about for me first, and then I'll talk about for my wife. I'm getting ready to buy season tickets for the Rockets.
Okay.
That is crazy. It's not because I'm a Rockets fan, it's because I live in Houston. But that to me feels crazy because let me tell you a quick story. Man, we went on this date. I planned this whole date out. Man, I felt like I was the man. When you did your thing and you like, okay, this is good. I'm getting ready to kill him. So we're going to go to a Heat game when we lived here in Miami. I had a hotel. And I had reservations for dinner. So, we don't got to come back down to Homestead, like drive another hour back home. Nah, we're going to watch the Heat game. Then I'm going to go to a hotel, feeling good, feeling sexy. And then we get to the arena. And for some reason, this app is tied to my law school email. So I cannot retrieve the tickets. And I'm like, oh, man. So we're in front of the stadium. Like, everybody's going in. Everybody, like, we're just on the steps, of the stadium. And, like, I'm, like, trying to reset my email, like, trying to, like, hit up Michigan State, trying to figure this out, and I'm calling StubHub or whoever it was and be like, hey, why would you send it to that email address and not my main email address? And they're like, that's what you had on file. And I was like, I never said that that's my email address. So we're doing all this. Long story short, I'm like, forget it. I'm going to buy new tickets. By the time I buy new tickets, it's the third quarter, right? But here's the thing. Here's the hidden blessing. Because it's the third quarter, cats are letting the tickets go for nothing because like I'm making something off of it. Like, clearly nobody bought my tickets. So we end up getting tickets on like the 9th row for like, the same amount, like $50, whatever, $25 each. And that just effed up my life, man. I'm ruined forever. Because I was like, wait. Like you could see like their faces, like you could see like the bars, because I was up there. Like that's where if I was at a Heat game, I was up there. Like you couldn't see nothing. You're like, wait, did he? Oh, we scored. Okay, we scored. Okay, that's cool. So basically, buying Rockets tickets right behind the bench. And that for me represents like, I made it in life. I done made it. That's crazy. For my wife, I would say I've been able to buy her Louis bags. This year I bought her 2, one for Mother's Day, one for her birthday. That's a blessing. But she's a doctor. Well, she's going to be a doctor. She's in med school. I told her, you will not graduate with student loans. By the time you graduate, you will be debt free. And that for me, every month I see that joint drop down. She don't even care. Like I be telling her, I'll be like, hey, this is how much we owe now. This is how much we owe now. And it's really her debt, but it's my debt because I'm her husband. But like the fact that she will graduate with no student loan, and we're talking over $250,000 in loans, like that to me, you have to ask her to answer that question. But like that makes me feel like my testicles are just unbearably huge. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tell me nothing. Like,
debt free is a real thing.
Debt free, but I paid. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did that. It's a feeling like you ain't put in, because there's always that feeling with professional degrees. It's like, I'll pay it later after I graduate, after I get the big job. I'll pay it. But like, nah. You're gonna start off your career from zero, and then everything from there is going to be building. So that makes me feel like I'm the man.
My last question, man, is man of God leadership inherently patriarchal? Yes or no? And what does that say about submission in marriage?
Absolutely is the answer to the question. What it says about submission in marriage is, man, we're trying to follow God's design. And that's what he said. He didn't say men are better, they're any more important, but that is the order that he set out. And it is a patriarchal order. And we're not arguing with it so far as work for us. And man, they could have the alternative. Because it sucks out there.
All right, let's get to this right here. We get to the wild bunch right now. These are just random questions that we just have laying around.
All right, what we doing?
The Black religious community often brands drinking as a sin. And you drink. And you claim to be, and you are a man of God.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that in your faith and navigate judgment from the church?
There's a verse in the Bible that says, if your brother, if it offends him to eat meat, don't do it, because it's better for you to, sacrifice than to offend your brother. And in that context, they were sacrificing food to idols. And he's like, man, there's nothing wrong with eating that meat. It's just food. But it was sacrificed to an idol, and somebody who was in that, world, that might affect them a certain way. So that I say that to say that I'm not going to flaunt my Christian freedom around somebody who has some type of issue. And there are people who have issues. I also smoke cigars. And there are some Christians who will be like, what? No, you're backsliding. What's going on? But I'm like, but what I've come to understand you say heathen?
Yeah, you're a heathen.
What I've come to understand, man, is Jesus made things very simple. He was crucified by the people who were trying to make things unnecessarily complex. And he said, man, you'll cross the desert, you'll cross the world to go and make a disciple and make them twice the son of Satan that you are. He said, man, you're whitewashed tombs. You look good on the outside. You're pearly white on the outside, but on the inside you have death. These are the people who ultimately crucified him. And ultimately, when he was asked about the greatest commandment, he said, I got 2. Love the Lord your God with all your mind, heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. This is the distillation of what he came to bring from a religious person who asked him about the greatest commandment. So therefore, what I've come to understand through much study And I came up in a religious environment like that where it was like drinking is bad, everything is bad. Man, God is not overly concerned with things like that. There's excess to everything. But ultimately, the way you live, the way you treat him and the way you treat others is going to be the barometer to what ultimately pleases him or does not please him. And when you start majoring on the minors, you get into religious territory that is going to be destructive to you and destructive to other people. Because at that point, you're going to care more about traditions and rules than people. And ultimately, man, that's all that God cares about is his people.
All right. I have two more random questions here.
Give it to me.
You are in essence the Hispanic Drake version of Drake. Everybody can't tell us. You all look at him. Don't he look like the Spanish version of Drake? That's all you got to say.
Okay.
So saying that, women love Drake, and you are a self-proclaimed man that been with one woman your entire life.
Yeah.
How do a man like yourself maintain fidelity when you're the Hispanic version of Drake?
Man. Look, man, I will say honestly that I haven't always had the best dealings in this area. I've never cheated on my wife. Never kissed another woman. Not even gotten close, but I didn't do a good job early on of putting myself in environments where I would flee from sin. You know, sometimes you just want to see like, okay, I ain't gonna taste it, but what it smell like? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to. Can I get smell close enough to smell? You know, I'm talking about food. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about what you thinking. The point is, look, I had this one guy in law school. He was my homeboy, and he saw that a young lady was getting close to me, like she was like plotting, you know, trying to make her move, trying to like sneak in, and I went to a law school, 4% black. So once we get another black person, it's like, oh, come on, like you with us, you know? So she's new to the school. It's her first year. It's my second year. So I'm like, hey, whatever you need, you know, yada, yada. So here's my number. And me not even thinking what could possibly be going through her mind, but this guy from an outside perspective and somebody who was a little bit, let's just say worldly, more a man of the world, you know, would see this and be like, hey, look, I see what's happening here. And basically he pulled me to the side and he was like, hey man, leave that girl alone. And I'm like, what? We just studying together, you know, this and that. And come to find out, you know, she was trying to plot. And, you know, so I distanced myself. But later on, I had to say thank you to him. I was like, hey man, yo, bro, you were right about old girl. Man, appreciate you. The thing he used to call her the girl with the yams. That's what he used to call her. I was like, man, you were right about the girl, the girl. And he was like, the one with the yams. I was like, yeah, the girl with the yams. Yeah.
So she had a big old diggle.
She was like maple syrup you leave in the fridge and you'd be like, dang it. You know, that joint don't pour. She was thick. So, his response to me, it was a worldly response, but it was so full of wisdom and truth. He was like, I got you, man. You don't understand. You ain't never had no hoe phase. And I was like, what? I ain't never had no. What are you talking about? But I was like, you're right though. I ain't never had no hoe phase. So I didn't have the time where I did everything and then I was like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to go over here now. So he was like, he recognized, man, there could be some curiosities that could lead you to places where you don't want to go. And so as someone who's been there already, I'm just like, hey, I know your wife, your kids, and you ain't never had no whole face. So I got to protect you in times where you don't even know to protect yourself. So I appreciated that from someone who wasn't a man of God, someone who was using worldly wisdom to perceive these things and to ultimately protect me.
So I don't have a question, but I do want to chime in here. I just personally want to commend you. So for those of y'all watching, please understand, I'm 6'2", and I'm the small guy in the room. Okay, at 6'2", I'm the small guy in the room. All of us have good success. We all have good jobs, or for this young man, you know, he has his own business, and we all have the capability of earning really, really good income. So with that being said, for this brother to be 6'3", 6'4", you know, and he got the good hair, right? Look
Hispanic
like,
Drake.
yeah, the Hispanic Drake. Look like he got Jerry curls sitting up there. And for him to bridle himself, to operate with self-restraint, to operate with discipline, to prioritize his relationship with his God, and to say, I want to save myself so that I will only ever know one woman. That is something that I find to be so admirable and so commendable, because, you know, I got this big old gap, and simply because I'm 6'2", and I know how to articulate my thought, and because I make bread, I'm constantly, you know, having to hit them with the Heisman pose, you know, and kind of like stiff arm them and fend them off, right? So I can't imagine what it's like for a brother like yourself, man. So I just wanted to acknowledge you, celebrate you, man. Hey, respect.
Praise the Lord, man. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, brother.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Real quick, last random question. Make
Okay.
it quick here.
Yeah.
What's the one candid truth that actually holds your marriage together?
The one candid truth that holds my marriage together is that I know that the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. That ultimately I got to water my own grass. Like, I love doing this thing. You know, I grew up kind of in a religious system, and they always taught you to like flee temptation and to like not question things and to like not think about things, like just, you know, avoid things, you know. But I do the opposite when it comes to women in this way. Like, I want to think about what would happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, so this girl's good. She's giving me some play. She's making me feel good. Like, so, okay, what happens next? Okay, so, you know, we start kicking it. She's feeling me. So what happens next? Then, you know, we start doing whatever. Ultimately, we end up having sex. Well, so what happens next? Well, you know, you're a horrible liar, so Lauren's going to find out. So what happens next? So then she probably going to kick you out. So what happens next? So then your kid's going to find out. They going to know. And then, so what happens next? And I forecast the whole thing forward. And by doing that, I'm using my head instead of my behind. Basically, I'm learning a lesson ahead of time. And so to talk about eToys thing is, I've basically been able to forecast and be like, hey, that grass ain't greener. Like, yeah, she might have a bigger booty than my wife. Her titties may look nicer than my wife. Maybe she, you know, all things nicer, but ultimately, like, the end is death. And there's no life out there for me. There's no, like, I'm not missing anything. There's nothing that if I go and look for it, I'm going to find, and I'm going to be like, yeah, this was worth it. Like, I found it. It's ultimately going to lead to death and destruction. And so, you know, that keeps me together. Not just, let's not even talk about women, man. Let's talk about just pornography and just being like, man, this feels good. And I think it's going to, you know, satisfy me. But I mean, the research is unquestionable how destructive pornography can be to a marriage. And so I do the same thing. I forecast. And I'm like, man, there's nothing over there that's going to benefit me, or even doing wild stuff. Last night, Mr. Life and I, we were talking about bringing another woman into the bedroom, and what that would look like. Like, And we were just forecasting together. I mean, that's not what we're calling it, but we were just talking about like, man, or like other people, they've swung with other couples and like the man knocked the other dude's wife down and he just could not get over it. Like, cause he was like, man, she don't never moan like that with me. Like, and it just messed them up, messed up their marriage. These are real people I'm talking about. And I'm just like, man, realizing that like I'm squarely where I need to be in God's will, and there's nothing out there that's really going to satisfy. That keeps my marriage together on my side.
Close out question. You in your final days and all your work is done and the casket closes. What do you want to be remembered for and known by?
Man, that's a great question. I will say what I always used to say in law school, and we touched on it a lot here, is that, man, when I am on my deathbed, I want to be able to look up and say, I was faithful to my wife. That is a life goal of mine. So that's for me. But ultimately, I want to be said, man, that he did those two things that Jesus said. And he loved God with all his mind, heart, soul, and strength. And he loved his neighbor as himself. And I'm going to manifest that in a way that's particular to my set of skills and my background. But ultimately, man, those two commandments are the same for all of us. And I want that to be said of me. And so, how that manifests is yet to be seen. But man, I think that, a start is being holy, being pure before God. And then, loving my wife and children, my community, it would be, fulfilling the second part of that commandment. For sure.
Well, all our guests on Man-Made Men, you have to be actually inducted in. And we do that by making sure that men look good, smell good, and be great. And you already mastered two of those. So we're going to help you master one of those. And that is, we have a gift under that brown pillow there. So if you can pull the pillow back and look down. Yes, sir. There you go. So we're going to help you look good and smell good.
Oh, shoot, boy. Let's go. Hey, Mr. Lights done got me on the colognes. Man, your collection, bro, is out of control. Okay, let's go, all man. Right.
Very, very, very last question before we wrap this up. It is customary that each made man refers to the next made man. Who are you recommending as our guest next?
Brian Chavis. He is one of my partners, clients, friends. And he battled a brain tumor, and has his own real estate company, and he's doing good things in your area, in the Tampa area. So, yeah, man, let's get him on.
What is the one question you think we should ask him that you want our audience needs to know?
Ask him when it gets really dark, really, really dark, what have you told yourself, or what has God told you in order to bring you out of those times? Because, I mean, he stared death in the face on many occasions due to his brain surgery, his tumor. And so that would be my question for him. I think that'd be a blessing for your audience.
Everyone, Jonathan Arias, and he is now a made man. We out. Look at that.
Well, it's been almost 20 years since I've seen you.
It's been a long time. Yeah, for sure.
So today, obviously, we're going to be interviewing your husband, but before we do that, I just wanted to have a sit down with you. You're a woman that has drive and ambition yourself. What has it been like actually trying to support a man that has, vision and drive like that while still trying to stay the course for what you always intended to do with your life?
I think it makes it easy when you have a spouse that also supports you. From the beginning, we've both been two people that knew that we wanted to do a lot of things, maybe not necessarily in business, but even like through ministry, through just helping out our families, things like that. So I guess when we both kind of just took these paths on doing these big career options, it just came natural to kind of like want to support each other. I think for me, the biggest thing in supporting him has been making sure that he can be in a place where he feels free to be able to just go. And then not necessarily having to worry about home, but honestly, he's been really supporting me through these last couple of years. So I think, yeah, it's not really about me necessarily being supportive to him, but like us being supportive to each other.
Okay. So with that, I want to touch on something you said. You used the word partner, and one of the things that I always find funny is Mr. Life. He has a strong aversion to the word partner, right? Actually, I fancy it, and here's why I fancy it, because I look at it in a completely different light. I look at it as like a purpose partner. So someone that you're in a partnership with to help realize the purpose that the union of the two of you was designed to put out into the earth. So with that being said, based on what you guys have been able to produce thus far and the support that you say you offer for one another, do you believe that you guys are actually one another's purpose partners?
Definitely, for sure. I think that we just see it so many times, like throughout the years. We've been married for 15 years. So, early on, I think it's kind of hard to see that in a relationship. But I think slowly, after he decided that he wanted to go to law school, just being like, okay, like this is something that is for us. It's not him going out and completing a goal and I'm just sitting on the sideline, but it's like, how can we get our family to where we need to be? So
I hate to interrupt you, but I got to.
Go ahead,
right?
go ahead.
So how did you arrive at that thought process? Because a lot of women will get lost in that when they see a man that has that drive, that has that focus, that has that ambition, right? They say, well, what about me? But you had an understanding that it was actually his ambition, his focus, and his drive was actually not just about him, but it was about both of you. It was about the collective. It was about us. How did you arrive there?
It wasn't like we had a conversation. I think that before we were married and early in our marriage, we read things like The Purpose-Driven Life and things like that. We did have conversations about where we wanted to go. We have this thing that we used to do. We don't really do it anymore now that I think about it, but we used to kind of do whiteboarding. And we would talk about certain goals that we had and things that we wanted to accomplish. And I think that when you kind of keep the end goal in mind, it helps you to see that, okay, as I'm moving along, as I'm doing these things, even making certain sacrifices, you don't look at them like, okay, I'm the only one sacrificing here. It's like, this is something that we set out to do. This is something that we both know that we want to do because we've talked about it. There's no surprises. And then right now we're just in the process of doing what we said we were going to do.
I love it. I love it. So I touched on the part where you talked about partnering with him. And I also mentioned Mr. Life and how he actually doesn't like that word because he says, his wife is in fact his wife, not his partner. So I want to touch on it, you being a woman of God, I want to touch on it from the wife aspect. The Bible clearly defines what a wife is in Proverbs 31, starting at verse 10. And so how have you embodied that word, so the Proverbs 31 is like the ideal, it's like the model of like the perfect wife. What do you think that you've been able to embody that allows for you to at least closely walk and align with that to support your husband as a man of God?
I think that God clearly stated that women were supposed to be a help meet. To me, meat is like partner, you know? I think that for me, God gives men and women vision in order to do certain things that he wants done to see the advancement of his kingdom. And I think that it's so important to see your spouse as your partner, because I think the moment where you lose sight of that, for certain people, that's where problems, I think, start to come about. And, you know, it's not to say like we've done it perfectly at all. I think that there's times where you learn from mistakes, you start to look at things maybe from one perspective versus another in terms of who's driving what, you know? But I think that there's so much to be like appreciated from a man and a woman being in partnership, being able to play to each other's strengths and weaknesses. And when you see it that way, there's just a flow. I feel like there's a flow in life, there's a flow in business, there's a flow in your finances, there's a flow in parenting that you don't appreciate when you kind of look at things one-sided, you know?
Okay, so I'm gonna hit you with a tough question. All right, so the Bible says that the woman comes from the man and not the man from the woman. And the Bible also said that the woman was made for the man, not the man for the woman. And so a lot of women, they take issue and they take exception when you talk about submission, when you talk about divine order. Like there was a divine order that was always set, and in that divine order, the husband is the head, and the woman is to submit. And let me be clear that the scripture also says, likewise submit to one another. Right. But then it also goes back to the woman, right? So it tells her to submit. It says submit to one another. Then it goes back to the woman and tells her to submit again. Which suggests to me that for many women, that is a challenge.
It is.
How have you worked through that? And can you say that you've arrived at a point where you learn to trust this leadership and begin to more fully submit, or is that still something you wrestle with?
Well, I don't think it's anything that I ever wrestled with. I think being a woman from the South, I don't have an issue with submitting to a man. And I think a lot of women don't have an issue with submitting to a man. But I will say that a lot of times that submission, for me, it doesn't come hard. Okay. But you have to have that other side of when God stated that women are supposed to submit to their husbands, but husbands are supposed to love their wives.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes when you are the type of person who can submit, it has to be met with that love. There has to be a balance between someone who is submitting under an authority that they feel that they can trust, because sometimes that trust does have to be built first in order to willingly submit. It's just like in basketball or any sport, you know, there's usually like a team leader, right? But that leader has to kind of prove themselves to be worth following, you know? Yeah. And I think that early in a relationship, that's not something that just naturally happens. Like the husband has to prove himself to be worthy of submission, just like anyone else. And I understand that it's different because I'm talking about a sport where it's full of men who kind of want to be more dominant. But I think it's the same way because we all have kind of different things to give. And there has to be like that mutual level of respect. That's that love part that kind of comes in for a woman. So with that, I would say this, that, you know, and that's Ephesians 5, starting at verse 21, going through the end of the chapter, if I'm not mistaken, verse 21 or 22, where it tells the woman to submit. And then you spoke to the love piece, right?
But in between submit and love, there was an offering that the woman needed to respect, right? And so it told the woman to submit. It told her to respect. But when you look at the rest of that chapter, it was the word of God telling the man how he was to deal with that woman.
Right.
So we get hung up on the submission part, and we lose sight that the man is supposed to sacrifice, right? And everything else about the rest of that chapter was about how he loves her and how he sacrifices for her, and how he deals with her in such a way that it actually not only gives her honor, but it brings honor back to our Father.
Right.
So I think that that's an area where a lot of people get hung up, is they get so caught up on the word submission, and I think that's something that we as a people, we need to really examine, that there's a sense of lack of safety.
Right. There is.
That we're not able to move past and actually allow for us to be able to come together in a way that our union creates something more perfect. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and she told me I'm a staunch feminist. I'm a staunch feminist, and I said I don't know how that's serving you, ma'am. I said let me just offer you this. I said I'm hearing you talk about being a staunch feminist. Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the whole red pill thing, and I said you being a staunch feminist, a lot of people would call you blue pill. So you got blue pill and you got red pill. So you got opposing sides. I said, but the thing about red and blue is when you bring them together, you have purple. Purple is the color of royalty. Purple is regal.
Yeah.
Purple is it was actually in the temples. It was actually on the robes of the priests during the biblical times, right? Some scholars say it also spoke to the fact that there was a divine presence that was being ushered into the temple, right? So when you bring the red and the blue together, you have royalty, you have regalness, you have the divine. Yeah. So why are we fighting one another instead of busy loving one another?
That is true. I think that's just the curse of fallen man. I think from the beginning of time, and once Eve kind of took a bite of that apple and gave it to her husband, and then God came and said who's responsible for this, and we started kind of pointing the blame. I think that we just haven't stopped ever since. We always want to point the blame to someone else besides ourselves. It's just lack of accountability on so many different parties. I think men are so busy fighting women, saying that, the reason why, families can't be what they are is because women are not submitting. Women feel like men are not stepping into the roles that they feel safe and secure and feel like they can submit. But I think if everybody would just focus kind of on what they need to do, things would be a lot better.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about Eve bringing the apple to Adam for him to consume. And so this will be my last offering, and then, if there's anything that you care to share, I would love to just leave the floor to you. Yeah. My last offering to you is Eve brought Adam the apple. What I would ask you is, in your 15 years, you guys have built something beautiful. Yeah. Continue to do so. And instead of doing what Eve did and bringing him the apple, continue to bring him peace. Yeah. Continue to bring him your feminine essence. Continue to bring him that light in your eyes. Continue to give him that smile. Continue to bring him your encouragement. Continue to bring him your support. Continue to be his ezekanigdo, his essential strength. Yeah. Because that's what the Bible calls the woman. He calls her an essential strength. So continue to give him your essential strength that comes from the divine, that helps him to manifest his best and highest self. Your feminine gift is necessary. Your feminine gift is needed. Your feminine gift empowers him. Your feminine gift strengthens him. That's why with his masculine gift, he would give his very life to protect you.
Yeah, he would.
Give him your feminine gift.
That's all I can do.
Anything else you want to leave people with?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's all.
All right.